You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
The machine age is here, and it's made Clone Army look like a frickin' joke. In this video, we're going to be attempting to get 2,000 research, almost 500 alloys per month, and a very healthy functional economy within the first 35 years or so. Yes, you heard me right, 2,000 research per month and 400 or 500 alloys in the first 35 years. We are, of course, going to be rushing for the Virtual Ascension, which is one of the brand new Machine Ascension paths introduced with the Machine Age. To show this off, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tall, the tallest giant you'll ever see, who's also possibly the most powerful empire we've ever seen in Stellaris. This build is making use of a whole host of new features that came in not just with the new DLC, the Machine Age, but also with the free patch 3.12. We're going to be playing as an individualistic machine empire. That means we've chosen our species to be of the machine portrait set, but we are still choosing biological ethics and government authorities. Let's start off with the origin. We're taking Voidforge. This is the Void Dweller origin, but for machine empires. We'll start on an orbital habitat, and our species will get a couple of extra traits. We also start with the orbital habitat technology, so we can build additional orbital habitats. We will be guaranteed the habitat expansion research option, allowing us to build bigger habitats later on. And instead of guaranteed habitable worlds, we will be guaranteed some resource-rich systems instead of those colonizable planets. Those resource-rich systems will enable us to build very big habitats with lots and lots of available districts, because the districts available to your habitats depends entirely on the resource deposits of the planets in that system. We'll also get a massive 25% reduction to our habitat build cost. Every single non-city district on our habitat will grant us plus 0.25 building slots. We can have 2 more districts on every habitat, and every habitat district will provide an additional job. That will be very, very important later on. When it comes to our traits, we will of course be machine, giving us an extra 20 years of leader lifespan, a minimum of 50% habitability. Starting age of our leaders will be between 5 and 10, and will have no food upkeep. Instead, that will entirely be replaced with energy. Because we are Void Dweller, we get 0G optimized, giving us an extra 15% output on all of our habitats, but some debuffs on non-artificial worlds. Adaptive Frames is the new auto-modding trait that has become available with patch 3.12. This is available to biologically ascended empires, overtuned empires, cyborg empires, and machine empires. Instead of picking any one trait, this 3-point trait instead over time changes to provide us a bonus depending on the job the pop is working. So if they are working in a trade value job like a trader, they will get trading algorithms giving them 25% additional trade value from jobs. If they're working to mine resources, they'll get an extra 15% mineral from job output, and so on and so forth. It's important to note this trait power will not stack with the same traits. So if you take trading algorithms and adaptive frames and then place one of your pops on a trade value job, 2 trading algorithms will not stack. You'll only get plus 25% trade value. We're going to grab mass produced for more pop assembly speed. Not that we really need much pop assembly speed. Bulky will increase our housing usage. Given we're not growing biological pops, we don't care about housing. High bandwidth increases our empire size from pops, but very soon we'll be able to completely ignore that. Last but not least, for our free trait, we've taken Art Generator. This is a free trait all machines now get, granting us plus 2% unity from jobs. There are other options available, but we want the extra unity. We want that extra unity, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to be rushing for a Virtual Ascension. As an individualistic machine, we of course get access to the basic biological civics. We're going to be taking Parliamentary System. This means our factions will spawn right at the start of the game, and we'll get a massive boost to that faction unity output. This is going to be super useful for getting additional unity. We'll also take Sovereign Guardianship. Now this civic cannot be added or removed after the game has started, so if you want to take Sovereign Guardianship, you need to take it now. This is a very, very important civic to take if you want to play with a tall playstyle. You'll get a massive reduction to empire size from pops and empire size from districts, but a big increase to empire size from planets, branch offices, and systems. You'll also get more diplomatic weight and a little bit of unity from every soldier. On top of that, we'll get the Fanatic Guardians as defense armies, meaning that just a single enforcer and maybe a couple of soldiers should make our planet nigh impregnable. If that wasn't enough, we'll also get access to the Reloading Bay Starbase building, which increases fire rate, and the Inner Focused Edict, allowing us to convert influence directly into a boost to our Unity output. The council position here is also one of the best council positions in the game. When it comes to our authority, we're going with democratic. We need that in order to take parliamentary system. On top of that, after 10 years, if we elect a different leader as our ruler, we will get a reset on the government reform and policy cooldown, allowing us to reform our government at year 10. We're going to try and reform our government as soon as we've met alien species, and basically get rid of parliamentary system, which will have by that point served its purpose. No Unity rush would be complete without taking spiritualist, and of course, there's nothing that says spiritualist like a machine empire. We'll be getting a boost to Unity, a reduction in edict cost and upkeep, and probably more importantly, access to temple buildings. We're taking militarist so that we have access to the sovereign guardianship civic, and egalitarian so that later on we can use the utopian living standard. On top of that, we'll get more specialist output and a boost to our faction resource output, which will stack with the 40% from parliamentary system, granting us a minimum of 65% additional unity from each of our factions. When it comes to our ruler, Mr. Tall, I'm going to make them unofficial and grab the charisma trait, though something like principled would be equally viable. That wraps up the build. Let's dive in and find out how we play the darn thing. If you'd like to follow along at home, these are the settings I'm using today. It's important to note here we've set tech and tradition cost to 0.75. If you're going on 1 times tech and tradition cost, you'll probably get to the same place as we do about 6 or 7 years later. These settings have been chosen as they are the normal settings for a PvP game. My first action may seem a little confusing to you, and don't worry, it was definitely confusing to me when I first came across this idea. I need to say a massive shout out here to Giltanus and Mr. Barbe, who brought this build to my attention and gave me quite a few important tips to get it working. What we're going to do first is unemploy all of our researchers, so we'll only be producing base research. I'll also unemploy the Enforcer because we really don't need them. Unity is key to this build, so we're going to switch over straight away to Isolationist for that juicy 10% extra monthly unity. I'm also going to switch over my subjugation terms to Benevolent. That way, when my factions do form, the Egalitarian faction will be very, very happy with me. You should almost certainly take the Proactive First Contact protocol. This will grant you increased contact speed, and we really need to meet lots and lots of other empires to get this build working. I've started buying 20 minerals a month. We'll need a small early boost to mineral output in order to get some early districts up and running. Speaking of early districts, I'm first building an industrial district on my capital, then I'll build a second industrial district, followed finally by a reactor district. That will complete all of the early open districts on the capital. I've also sent out my science ship to survey Alpha Centauri first. With this build, I have chosen for the Sol Void Dweller start so that I know which system will contain all of my research deposits. It's going to be the Trinary star system of Alpha Centauri. Then I'll survey that system first, and this will be where I place my very first habitat. For our first tradition, we're going to grab Prosperity. Importantly, you need to push for standard construction templates, reducing your building and district cost and increasing your build speed. After that, just complete this tradition. After you've added those extra districts to your capital, you then want to place down temples everywhere. This capital is basically going to be pumping out unity and pretty much nothing else. A few basic resources just to keep your economy alive, but your only purpose now is unity. To buff that unity a little bit more, we'll turn on Veneration of Saints, giving all of our priests an extra 20% output. I've also started promoting my egalitarian faction because they are very easy to make happy, and turned on Encourage Political Thought. If you don't have an egalitarian leader on the council, make sure to purchase one and then put them on your council. And I've started building my second habitat in the Alpha Centauri system. I've also found Barnard Star. This has got plenty of planets. We'll see what the resources are, but I'll probably put down another habitat here. Though if you can find a system with more planets, more spots for major orbitals, choose that one. Generally, you don't want to head too far away from your capital system because we basically only want to grab 2 extra systems and place habitats there. We don't want to increase our empire size too much, and we don't want to spend lots of extra influence. As soon as I've started constructing my 3rd habitat, I'll turn on Inner Focus to get an extra 10% monthly unity. After completing Prosperity, we're going to open one vision for, you guessed it, additional monthly unity. We're now at year 4 and we're making 100 unity a month, but most of our other resources do look like absolute dog poo. For our 2nd tradition, we're going to grab Enmity, and we're going to complete this one as well. We're going to ignore most of the bonuses here for now. The important thing will be the finisher effect, which unlocks the antagonistic diplomatic stance. This diplomatic stance increases our maximum number of rivalries by 2 and grants us a base of 10 unity from every single rivalry. We're going to try and find as many aliens out there in the galaxy as we can and then rival them. To this end, I've sent out my military fleet with my admiral early on to scout around. I'm also going to build another science ship, put a scientist on that, and use it to scout as well. The sooner we find aliens, the sooner we can begin our first contact process, and thus the sooner we can actually meet them to declare them our rival. I'm also going to queue up an additional construction ship. That construction ship will be used to build a number of minor orbitals in our capital system. These minor orbitals increase our number of research, reactor, or mining districts based on the deposit you place it on, and much more importantly, at the cost of only 38 alloys, we get half a building slot. So for every 70 alloys we spend, we're going to get +1 building slots on our capital. We'll then use those additional building slots to build more temples. More temples means more unity means more power, eventually. And if you're enjoying this video, please virtually own that like button, probably the rest of the whole darn galaxy. We're now at year 10, we've almost finished Enmity, but something more important has happened. It is now an election cycle. You must make sure that your primary ruler does not get re-elected. Hopefully there is another ruler already at the top of the list. If not, you may need to increase support a couple of times to bump another ruler up to the highest level of election chance. Whichever leader has the highest support will then become your ruler, and they'll get the title of Mr. Tall. On my 2nd habitat, eventually this is going to be focused on research. For now though, we don't need to worry too much about it. Our pop assembly is going to be very, very low. I would not recommend you build an additional roboticist job on any of your other habitats. In about 15 years' time, we're not going to have any use for pop assembly anyway. Instead, I'm placing an autocathon monument. I won't be actually working the culture worker jobs, I'll just be getting a bonus to unity output and some base unity production, absolutely for free. We're now at year 12 and we've made contact with our very first alien empire. Luckily, they are receptive to us, so we're going to start off by trading communications from them. We'll pay them a small sum of alloys, that should be fine, you should have plenty of that in the bank from all of those metallurgists on your capital, in exchange for communications. We'll do this to try and build up a network of as many civilizations in the galaxy as we can. Every new empire we meet will then hopefully make them happy with us and trade communications. Once we've traded communications and an empire no longer has anything to do for us, and we can no longer gain anything beneficial from the empire, we move to stage 2. Enmity should now be completed, so we can switch over to antagonistic. And once we switch to antagonistic, we can start declaring rivalries with empires that have no communications to trade. You can tell whether they know any other empires by attempting to trade communications and seeing if they think it's valuable. If it's a 0 here, that means they definitely have no communications. Declaring a rivalry here gives us 14 unity because we've got other bonuses and half an influence. For our 2nd Ascension perk, we're going to grab Consecrated Worlds, and we're going to consecrate any worlds we can find. For example, here in Alpha Centauri 4A, we have an arid world. Consecrating that has turned it into a venerated, granting us an extra 6% unity every month. If you don't have habitable worlds, try consecrating some of the worlds in your capital system. They may end up as profane worlds, but you can always attempt to re-roll them a little bit later. Even profane worlds will add 2% monthly unity, so it's not too bad. Now that we've met alien empires, we can also get rid of parliamentary system. If you get rid of this civic before you made contact with an alien empire, your factions may actually despawn. You definitely do not want that to happen, that would be terrible. But once we've made contact, we're absolutely A-OK. I'm going to now switch into an oligarchy and grab what is honestly one of the worst civics in the game, Exalted Priesthood. Exalted Priesthood will grant us +1 unity from every priest, and some politicians on our world will be replaced with high priests that have a slightly higher unity output. In order to do this, we of course need to move to Oligarchic, which grants us more councillor skill level, but does mean we cannot change our government type for another 20 years, which will be until year 30. Before you switch over, make sure to unemploy all of your politicians on your planets. That way, you won't accidentally end up with an unemployed ruler. You can then re-employ your politicians and you should be absolutely fine. We'll also have to fill up our council yet again. As my second agenda, I did take Expand the Council, and I've now switched into Evolving Society. Expand the Council will give us an extra councillor slot. In this case, I'm using it for an Archpriest. I still want the Minister of State as well, because I want to have the maximum number of governors that I can get on my council. We're going to specialize those later on to try and get additional planetary build speed. Once your other habitats are up and running, based on your economy, which as you can see is rather dismal, and the approval of your egalitarian faction, you can allow resettlement. This is going to make the egalitarians slightly upset with you because you no longer have free movement, but as long as you stay above 80% approval, you'll still get that 10% happiness boost empire-wide. We can then resettle one of our worker class pops over to those new habitats and get them straight into the politician role. This role grants lots and lots of extra unity. Slightly more unity, in fact, even than a priest. You may now need to start selling some alloys. I'm going to start selling 10 per month in order to balance the books here. A slight loss in consumer goods is fine. We've got plenty of time to burn through. We only need to maintain this nonsense until around year 25 to 30. For your third tradition, I'd recommend you take Mercantile and dip into Adaptive Economic Policies. Now, you could actually go for Mercantile as your very first tradition, and instead of building lots and lots of temples on your capital, you could build commercial zones, and then convert your trade value directly into unity. This is a very strong and viable build. I'm just going with the priest build, which is alternative. Generally speaking, they do seem to be roughly similar power levels though, with the priest possibly able to make a little bit more unity. In this priest-based run-through, I'm going to choose consumer benefits. That's going to help me reduce my consumer goods deficit just a little bit. On my other habitats, I may start as well building a couple of commercial zones too. But this habitat, Alpha Centauri, now at year 15, I want to focus on building 0G districts and make sure though that I unemploy the jobs. We don't want any researchers yet, we just want the empty districts available. Do keep your economy in mind though, it's going to be a little flat at this point, so don't overextend yourself with, and I can't believe I'm saying this, district upkeep. Every single energy credit is going to count. Once you've grabbed a temple as well on your other habitats, feel free to switch them over into an ecclesiastical station. That is going to increase our priest output, and given we now have a politician and a priest, amenities won't be any sort of a problem. It's now year 19. My capital is completely filled with temples, I have some pops working technician jobs for the energy, and my economy is relatively balanced. I'm selling a bunch of alloys and buying in lots and lots of minerals to build up extra districts. I've also made sure to employ a governor which has the unifier trait on my capital. This governor will boost your unity output from jobs by 5% per skill level, giving you quite a nice additional boost. I didn't manage to roll unifier until around year 10 or 15, but do put it in earlier if you can find it. Alpha Centauri just has a politician and a couple of priests, and my Barnard Star habitat is really only just coming online with a culture worker. This third habitat will be my alloy habitat. I'm going to push out lots and lots of alloy districts here in order to get it up and running. I've also at year 19 completed my third tradition, Mercantile, and grabbed the Synthetic Age Ascension perk. This begins your transformation. Now, you can either choose real-time or error correcting. I'd probably recommend real-time and bite the bullet on that minus 10% monthly unity. We've got lots of other monthly unity bonuses already, and I am making a hefty amount of unity here at about 450 to 500 per month. We still need to keep producing unity as this situation progresses, because once it completes, we want to instantly unlock and complete the virtual tradition path. On real time, this will take 100 months, which is about 8 years. Overclocked will get us there slightly quicker, but we will be sacrificing more Unity. Overall, that probably won't be worth it. Around 50-60% of the way through this situation, you could switch over to overclocked, but you really do have to play it by ear. We also still have absolutely no science and a pretty dysfunctional economy. I've not actually rivaled here my local empire. Instead, I've continued to improve relations with them. We do not want them to attack us. We want to form a non-aggression pact. If they attack us now, we are sunk. But other empires further afield, like the Belmacozans here, which are, about a quarter of the way around the galaxy from us, are absolutely a great target for your rivalries. Those rivalries are granting us a massive extra 100 Unity per month. This build is obviously a virtual rush, and you should therefore pick Embrace the Virtual World. This will not only boost your virtual power plant, but also allow you to then take the virtual tradition here. We're at year 25, and I've currently saved up 42,000 Unity, but I'm still making 500 per month. In no small part thanks to evolving society. For my third agenda, I grabbed Give and Take to give us extra faction approval and faction resource output. This pushes all of our factions into being very, very happy and boosts their Unity output. I've also continued building districts on my other habitats. I've got 3 industrial districts here and 2 research districts. Let's add another one. Our capital is going to be just a little bit different. I'm going to be converting district over into astro mining bays, starting basically now, a couple of years before I go down my virtual path. We want to have lots and lots of mining, and in fact, this capital planet is going to be pretty much the only place we are producing lots and lots of minerals. To do that, I built additional construction ships, and I'm now overbuilding all of the deposits in my capital. I want to do it carefully though, saving the largest mineral deposits to last. I don't want to lose all of my income. You of course don't really need to worry about technology at all up until this point. The only technology I think you should definitely grab is planetary unification as soon as you see it. It'll take you 5 to 10 years to complete this technology, but you'll get a large bonus of Unity, given how high your Unity production is, and some extra monthly Unity. On top of that, if you're lucky enough to find an archaeological dig site in or around your capital system, do complete it and get lots of minor artifacts so you can trigger a celebration of diversity or a religious revelation for extra Unity. If you don't get this like me, don't worry too much, it's not the end of the world. It's now year 27 and we've completed our transformation situation. Doing this adopts the virtuality tradition, so we now only need to spend our Unity on the 5 tradition picks. Clustered capacity, of course, will boost all of our resources from jobs by 125% for every pop. Data-driven logic loops reduces our empire size from pops, but massively increases it from planets. We also get reduced researcher and priest upkeep. Capacity synchronization unlocks the virtual economy focus. We're going to switch this one to research and never change it. Advanced server maintenance boosts all of our clerks, giving them an extra 1% resource from virtual pops as an output. We'll also get +1 maximum districts on all of our worlds at planetary ascension tiers 1, 5, and 10. Turning our planets to level 1 is something we're going to do very, very soon to get an additional district on every single planet. Last but by no means least, productivity simulations means that all districts that provide clerks, priests, or researchers will provide additional jobs. That means that our 0G research districts now provide 4 researcher jobs. In fact, they're actually providing 4.5 researcher jobs. Wow. Once we fully ascended, we want to restore all jobs. You'll actually need to click this twice, because when you first click restore, it doesn't quite take into account all of those extra jobs. We can then let the game run momentarily, and what do you know, hey presto, we've gone from basically no pops to completely filled planets. Let's wait till we get to the end of the month. We're going to go from having basically no income or economy whatsoever, let's check these numbers out, pretty much nothing across the board, and then as soon as the month ends, everything is going to jump up. Holy moly, we're now doing 600 research, 700 Unity, 90 alloys, 75 consumer goods, 73 minerals, and 145 energy. But this is only the beginning. We're now going to start building more and more and more. I'll switch over the Foundry world to be a Foundry world, the research habitat to of course be a research station, and we can keep the capital as a capital. Given how much energy we're making, I can now replace all of my reactor districts on the capital with astro mining bays. I'm also going to phase out all of these temples and replace them with research labs. Our highest priority, however, is of course getting more minerals. More minerals means we can build things faster. You'll also find tech production here is so high that you might really lose track of your technologies. It's not entirely terrible if you're playing in multiplayer to switch over to enable auto research here for a little bit if you can't keep up with research while you're dealing with micromanaging your economy. We also now want to build major and minor orbitals every single place that we have available. On top of that, once we unlock the technology to build an arc furnace, you should build a level 1 arc furnace on your capital system. Mercury is a perfect world for that. This will massively boost the available number of mining districts on our capital because every single major orbital will now be providing more mining districts. Let's jump ahead now 10 years. It's the year 2238. We ascended 10 years ago. We're now making 2,000 research per month. A solid 500 unity, 400 alloys, 180 minerals, and 200 energy credits. Rushing for the virtual Ascension gives you the best economy I have ever seen early in the game at this point. From here, we can build up easily the largest fleet in the galaxy and then go out and conquer everybody. Of course, you won't want to directly conquer every other nation. You will instead want to vassalize or tributize them, because virtual is the new tall. And Mr. Tall is a gosh darn giant. Again, I need to say a massive thank you to Giltanus and Mr. Barbe for assisting me with this video. I could not have done it without you. If you'd like to see this build in action live in a multiplayer setting, I'll put a link to the live stream where I played it down in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video and you've got a hankering for more machine and you've got a hankering for more Stellaris content that features the new DLC, the Machine Age, click the video on screen now.